Welcome back to probably one of my last videos that I'm going to do on the corona crisis. White wine. Because yesterday it was announced that the state of emergency, which has lasted for over 1 month and 3 weeks, is now over. Which means that people are free to go outside again, they are free to go shopping, shops are free to open, and everything is back to normal. Well, not quite. Let me explain. So if you're new to this corona series, this is already the 5th video that I did on kind of the corona situation in Japan since the lockdown or the state of emergency started back at the beginning of April. If you haven't seen the other 4 videos, I'll link to them down below. And kind of related to that, in this video I will also talk about what's going to come on this channel. It's kind of the 3rd channel update video that I'm doing in the last year, but yeah, it's going to slightly change kind of because corona or the state of emergency is over and we can go outside again. As I mentioned in my last corona update video 2 weeks ago, state of emergency at that time was supposed to end for around 32 prefectures around Japan. Turns out it ended up being 39 prefectures, those who just didn't see any new corona infections and who just had low numbers altogether. Following that, another 3 prefectures, Kyoto, Osaka and Hyogo, all in the western area of Japan, also saw their state of emergency end, and the last few prefectures that were left were here in Tokyo and the surrounding Kanagawa, Saitama and Chiba, as well as Hokkaido up in the north, which had corona problems since early February. But yesterday Shinzo Abe announced that that is finally over as well, so the corona state of emergency has now been lifted across the entire country. So what does that mean? It doesn't necessarily mean that just things are back to normal. Instead, Tokyo and other surrounding areas, as well as other areas around Japan, are kind of doing a kind of reopening in stages. In the first stage, it's mostly cultural places that are allowed to open. It includes museums, galleries, libraries, and events up to 50 people are also allowed. Restaurants are also allowed to open until 10 p.m. Right now it was until 8 p.m. Schools will also reopen again, probably from next week, beginning of June. And you will also have sports kind of taking place again, but without audiences. In the second stage, you will have kind of more entertainment-based places like cinemas and theaters open, and taking necessary precautions to make sure that social distancing measures are taking place. Stores that do not necessarily sell goods that are needed for daily life, like supermarkets and stuff, are also allowed to open, so a lot of like department stores and big malls will also open at that time. In step 3, people will be allowed to travel to other prefectures again. Right now, the government is just asking people not to travel to other prefectures than their own to prevent the spread of corona, obviously. But yeah, from the 3rd stage, which is set to take place around the end of June, people are free to travel around Japan as much as they like. And also nightlife, entertainment establishments like pachinko, like some bars, izakayas are poised to open again. And also bars and izakayas are allowed to open until 12 a.m. or until midnight. However, pretty unfortunate for us, karaoke is not really set to reopen yet. They're not sure when they will ask karaoke parlors to reopen, simply because it's very tight space, people sing, so there's a lot of spillage going on, and also you just have to clean the microphones every time. The overall situation or how good these kind of reopenings are continuing will be assessed every 3 weeks, and also the overall goal is to kind of reopen the economy and bring it back to almost normal levels by the end of August. Another thing I wanted to talk about were the face masks that Shinzo Abe announced. I think it was back in March already. The idea was at that time that face masks were very rare. They were hard to come by. People were reselling them online for exorbitant prices. So the government announced that every household in Japan would get 2 masks. I've covered this before. But yeah, the overall money for that was around 440 million US dollars that it would cost for every household to get those masks. Now, the issue with that is that, for example, we still haven't gotten our masks, and they only started recently shipping masks to, I think, 32 prefectures. So they started first shipping the masks to those prefectures that are most affected, which is coincidentally also here, but we still haven't gotten them yet. But yeah, so it was first like Tokyo, Kanagawa, Chiba, Hokkaido, and like all of these very affected by corona prefectures. And then recently they started shipping them to every household across the entire country. But again, it is taking a lot of time, and in the meanwhile, masks have just become available everywhere. You can go to any station, there will be stores that normally do not sell masks will have masks for sale for maybe a little bit more expensive than they're usually, but you can get masks for like 20 bucks, 50 masks for 20 bucks. So you can still find masks. So the overall measure of giving masks when people needed them. It's just way too late because it's been like 2 months and we still haven't received ours. And also the other thing, the 100,000 yen that each citizen or each person living in Japan receives, also still haven't gotten that yet. As far as I'm aware, they will start sending out the kind of forms this week in our city. Kind of, again, supposed to be quick corona relief money, and it is taking over a month, maybe almost 2 months already, and they still haven't even gotten the form to apply, yet alone the money. Now, speaking of money, there was another kind of big news story in the Japanese media and also international media that saw a lot of outrage, which was connected to students in Japan. Now students are kind of struggling because they have to pay their tuition, but they cannot go to college. So the Japanese government thought that they would give every student 200,000 yen to kind of help them with their necessary needs, their rent and whatever. Now there was a small caveat to that, because those 200,000 yen will only be given to Japanese students. Foreign students will also be able to receive that money, but only if they're in the top 30% of their respective grade. Now, as you can imagine, a lot of people were pissed by that because they kind of saw this unequal treatment of foreigners versus Japanese students. You saw a lot of people saying, why is this a double standard? Why do Japanese people get the money, even if they are lazy, but foreigners, maybe if they're in the top 40% or something, they don't get that any of that. On the other hand, you had people saying that foreigners will just study in Japan and they leave and they will not contribute to society any longer, not pay taxes and everything. In my opinion, I mean, it doesn't make sense, because if the government is just handing out 100,000 yen to everybody, irregardless of whether they're going to live in Japan for longer or not, then it kind of doesn't make sense that they wouldn't do the same thing for students. But I'm not a student, not personally that much affected by it. That was just another big story regarding the government money in the news recently. Now, speaking of foreigners, let's talk about travel news. Travel, as you can imagine, in Japan is very low at the moment, especially international travel. April, only 2,900 foreigners arrived into Japan, which is a minus 99.9% downfall from the same period last year. But the reason why so few foreigners are coming is mostly because there is a travel ban on, I believe, almost 111 or 112 countries around the world. This includes all of Europe, this includes most countries in North America, some countries in South America, in Asia and around the world. Most recently, there were 11 new countries added, including India, including Argentina, Pakistan, Afghanistan and some other countries. I'll link down below that you can see a complete list of all of the countries that are banned from coming to Japan. But if you're watching this video, chances are pretty high that you are banned from coming to Japan, unfortunately, at the moment. But this does not only apply to travelers, it unfortunately also applies to people who have a long-term visa in Japan. So this applies to people who have a spousal visa, this applies to people who have a working visa, this applies to people who have their apartments in Japan, who are their works in Japan. It was just suddenly announced that they cannot come back to the country anymore. So yeah, that's unfortunately, it was also recently announced that this kind of ban will be extended until the end of June, so it's going to be another month with that. However, the Japanese government also said that they are working on making sure that these long-term residents can soon come back to the country, and then after that they will look at travelers. However, the good news for travelers is that the Japanese government also announced that they are starting the Go-To campaign, as it was dubbed. It's a campaign where the government is basically subsidizing travel across different parts of Japan. Now, the details of this are still not finalized. The idea is that it will start at towards the end of July, and the idea is that Japanese government will give you money or give people money for traveling around Japan. So the plan is to give people who book kind of tours or book any kind of accommodation or something through an official travel agency, give them vouchers for up to 50% off of that kind of booking. It's also going to be vouchers for souvenirs and for some cultural activities. But again, it's still kind of work in progress, but the government is taking money. I think it's, I believe it was like 12 million US dollars or 12 billion. I'll have to double check, but I'll put it down below. But yeah, it's some money, it's a decent amount of money, and it's supposed to help obviously those affected areas that normally rely on tourism, and now that they are missing this foreign and also national tourism. For example, Kyoto saw a downfall of minus 90% of bookings in March from foreigners and minus 50% from Japanese nationals, so there are some areas that are really missing kind of that money, and the idea is to revitalize them with this go-to campaign. So that means that if travel is again possible by August, you can save some decent money by coming to Japan. With that, I can segue right into the channel update. As the state of emergency is now over and I'm free to go outside again, the content on this channel will slightly change. So before, or in the past few months, I've been mostly doing videos on living in Japan. I did, for example, our apartment tour. I did the video on how expensive it is to live in Japan. I also did some kind of travel advice videos. I did some obviously Corona update videos like this right now. But that was mostly because I just couldn't go outside and do the things that I really want to do, which are kind of broken down into 3 categories. I also updated my kind of the banner picture on my channel, so if you haven't seen it, you can check it out. Yeah, it's basically going to be hiking. Hiking is one of my great passions. I love doing it, and there's a lot of really interesting nature hikes in Japan and also around Tokyo as well. For example, yesterday I went to a really great hike, Kawasaki Coast in Shizuoka Prefecture. Really beautiful hike right by the ocean, like kind of a Jurassic Coast hike. Really beautiful. Video is going to be up on Sunday on that. But yeah, I kind of want to showcase more of these places because there's not a lot of information, and especially not on YouTube, on these places in English. That's why I want to kind of showcase them. That's why I want to show these beautiful places that exist in Japan, because I think a lot of Japan videos are really focused on maybe more the city and everything, and there's not a lot around the nature, but the nature here is really superb, really beautiful, and I want to showcase that. So that's hiking. The second thing would be photography. Photography has been one of my passions for the past 4, 5, 6 years. But yeah, I love taking pictures, and Japan is obviously my favorite country to take pictures of. There's just so many photogenic places all around Japan, and again, I want to share those with you. I'm going to upload different videos on my favorite photo spots around Japan, how I can get different pictures. If you haven't yet, you can follow my Instagram down below. You can see a lot of my Japan pictures over there. But yeah, I'm going to I want to teach you and I want to share with you all of these different places and how I get the pictures that I get. And the last thing will be travel. Travel as soon as that is possible again. Again, plan for that is maybe around mid-June, end of June. We already have like 2 trips planned this month, or next month, I mean in June. Certainly one summer comes rolling around, and maybe the government is subsidizing us a little bit, and it's going to be even more travel. So it's going to be on the place travel, but also just general travel advice, kind of what I've been doing before. And yeah, kind of all of these 3 topics tied together into this Google Maps that I did a while ago. It's been pretty popular. I think it's almost got like 2,000 views on it already, which is pretty great. And yeah, in this Google Maps you can find a lot of different hiking spots, you can find photo spots, you can find sakura spots, travel spots, and I keep regularly updating it since I published a video maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. I've been adding a lot of different places to it, so definitely check out the Google Maps link down below. The link will always stay the same, so you can just copy it once, save it somewhere, maybe as a bookmark, and you can always come back and see if there's any kind of new places. And if I make a new video, for example the Jogosaki Coast video, it will also be added to that Google Map, so you can quickly click on a place. If there's a video on it, you can watch the video from there as well. But yeah, that's going to be the channel going forward. I'll stick to the upload schedule of Wednesday and Sunday, probably 1 hiking video and 1 kind of maybe photo spot or travel video. Right now it's unfortunately the rainy season, or the start of the rainy season, which means that there might be a little bit less hiking videos, but then once the rainy season is over in July, definitely going to be a lot of cool hikes around Japan. So yeah, if you're into that kind of content and you're watching this without being subscribed, please subscribe, please like the video, and yeah, I think that's going to be it for today. Really glad that Corona is over, and I'm looking forward to going outside again. That's it, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.